A recent debate on Channel 7's Sunrise show between ADH-TV's very own Professor David Flint, representing Australians for a Constitutional Monarchy, and Craig Fozzie Foster from the Australian Republican Movement shed a bit more light on how different Aussies view our relationship with the King.
Well, the image of Queen Elizabeth is set to be removed from Australia's $5 note, but the late monarch won't be replaced by King Charles. Instead, the Reserve Bank will introduce a new design that honours the culture and history of the first Australians. The change is expected to take a number of years, with the RBA planning to consult with Indigenous Australians on what the new note will look like. Craig, let's start with you. Why do you say this was a good decision by the RBA?
Oh, it was a wonderful decision. I think, yesterday, millions of Australians like me felt a real deep sense of pride that we're finally starting to recognise, our 65,000 years of history. It acknowledges this path that we're walking with First Nations and placing the monarchy into its now historical context.
Now historical context? Oh, I'm sorry, Foz. Was there a referendum that I missed? I mean, if you want to have one, that's fine. But until then, the monarchy isn't historical. We have this thing called a constitution and a democracy. So you don't just, get to wake up and decide that we're a republic, mate. And when did the Republican movement become all about Indigenous issues? It's just one big woke soup for Fozzie.
I've got to say, I wanted the Deputy Chair of the ARM, Nova Peris, to be here this morning because it's appropriate for a First Nations person to be talking about this and the impact on our First Nations community and how they feel. Sadly, she couldn't make it this morning, so you have to do with me.
David, how do you feel about the King and the Queen, the late Queen, being snubbed?
Well, I think it's not really the monarchs being snubbed, it's the Australian people, because there's a process. Now, people are entitled to debate this issue. They're entitled to raise this, and I have no objection to that. That's democracy. That's all in order. But we have a process. We become a republic first, and then we remove the king from the official positions. We've had a very long tradition that in the lowest denomination note, and banknotes, of course, becoming almost irrelevant.
Exactly.
But to take the king away from that is a deliberate snub. It's an indication to his supporters that he's going ahead with the Republic. He knows full well he won't be going away because the polls are so bad that you wouldn't put up a referendum. They've got to really wait until they can persuade the people that they have a model and that they should go ahead with that, and that can be tested. But we haven't reached that point.
Is that the case, Craig? Do you not maybe have the support that you think you had?
Look, I think that's disrespectful of First Nations people, actually.
Oh, OK. Never mind the other 25 million of us. Craig the Foz spent the next minute or so talking about First Nations people and symbolism and the importance of it, seemingly forgetting that this was a debate about whether the King should be on our $5 note and making it pretty clear that he's never seen a $50 note. The one that has the Aboriginal inventor and author David Unaipon on it. But carry on, mate.
And if we're walking this path with First Nations, which we are, then these ties, these formal ties with the monarchy and this symbolism to, a new king who, let's face it, very few in Australia feel any connection or association with or emotional ties to, it's no longer reconcilable. In fact, it's indefensible.
Craig, David, has
I can understand the mistake. I'm flattered.
Has Craig got a point, though? The Queen was so popular. Is this the beginning of the end for King Charles in this country?
Not in the slightest. The putting the alternative as though you've got to have either the monarch or the Indigenous people on the banknotes, it's not really a fair comparison. It is not a question of having our constitutional system continue or acknowledging the Indigenous people. It's not that choice at all.